Golems were reworked in 3.23 quite a bit, and the community has a lot of content out there saying either they're trash again or they're good again. I think the middle ground is probably true. They're good for different things, especially the new variants, and we're going to just go over that a little bit right now, hopefully clarify some of the changes and hopefully give you some options to play. I currently am playing a poison conversion Carrion Golem build, and it's very fun and very viable. I don't see many people playing it in the league right now through poe.ninja, so there is a lot of opportunities, I think, to build this out and not be competed with on meta for a while. The build itself is very SRS-like. The items being used are pretty much just an SRS build. You use United in Dream, Aegis, a profane proxy, a replica dragon's flight, or whatever amulet you'd like for reservation, and just general gear and auras that would produce more damage or more defenses. There's no special tech other than using golems, and to me, I think Elementalist does it best because it's obviously built for that. However, you can do this as a guardian or any other class as long as you're willing to invest a little bit more and have maybe a little bit less damage or utility. Let's talk about the build. So the build is still in development. The POB is going to be pretty definitive about where you should be going. However, my gear is not perfect and it does not reflect that state. This is just more of a testing state for this actual character, and the POB will be the definitive direction you should be going. The build is very similar to a Poison SRS build. The overall character so far has been medium tuned. I have not done any fine tuning. Most of my gems are not fully leveled. The POB is going to be more definitive about where you should be going and how you should be building. The initial item that we use for poison conversion is United in Dream. We also pair that with a chance to poison, and this will give you 100% chance, and then it will start your fizz to poison conversion off pretty easily. This is probably about 60C to set up originally. Before that, you could be running dual clay shapers for a full physical variant, and you can do some pretty decent block chance with 2 clay shapers and dual wielding block. So that is a possibility. The next piece we're using is Profane Proxy and Despair, which is pretty common tech for a poison build. The next little bit that I think is a little bit different, so we're using Culling Strike, Maelstrom Golem, Withering Touch, and Feeding Frenzy. So the Chaos Golem does an AoE aura of chaos, and anything in that has a 6% chance to be inflicted with Wither. So the aura does do a hit. The additional Wither chance is to again increase this chance for Withering up as high as possible. So instead of speccing points into it or adding extra gear tech for it, I'm just using another Golem, which is a very nice upgrade for this build because I don't have to worry about that mechanic working anymore. It's just going to always work. After that, I'm running a Raised Spectre, a Meat Shield, a Minion Life, and an Animated Guardian. Later, I'll probably convert the Animated Guardian to a Hungry Loop, and I'll probably take the Raised Spectre to do a 4-link. The main links, or the main Spectres I'm using here, are a Carnage Chieftain for Frenzy, and I've been playing around with some of the new Spectres from the League mechanic. I think that there's a couple different ways you could look at it. Like, some of them are better for different reasons. If your golems are dying too much, you might get a meat sack. If you're looking for, which gives you more overall life. If you're looking for a little bit more damage, you may get a crit version if you're doing pure physical or crit spectre, or you may get a malevolence aura if you don't want to be running your own malevolence. There's a lot of different changes you can do here, so it's kind of mix and match, find what you like out of your build. I personally wouldn't be running Raised Spectre or Animated Guardian unless they're at least level 20, if not 2020s or 2120s. Your minions are just going to die a little bit too much if they're not. So I wouldn't convert from Animated to Animated Guardian. I probably do zombies here. I probably do that until you get a 20 or a 21. I personally am just doing this just for testing, and I'm fine with losing, I think it's like 10C for my AG, and then going finding the Spectres again. So to me, this is not an issue for testing, but may feel bad if your stuff starts dying. So just be aware. I'm running Replica Dragon's Flight. I normally do a Determination Aura here, mainly because I want more armor for my Aegis, but you can run whatever you like. You probably run a minion version here. For the links, I'm using Carrion Golem, minion damage, poison chance, multi-strike, melee fizz, and unbound ailments. This overall could be switched out from melee fizz to, I think, avoid manipulation or something else. I just didn't have the right coloring, so that's the choice I did here. If you want, you probably can do 2 greens, 3 blues, and a red. That's probably the optimal. The boots, again, I'm not really doing anything spectacular here. Most of this gear is pretty garbage. I'm just changing out so much stuff that it's not easy to keep up with having good variants of everything. So the Flesh Offering, Frost Blink, Tempest Shield, and Convocation boot links or setup is probably going to stay. I would rather be Frost Blinking places and then Convocating. The only thing here is Tempest Shield is not being used. I think I would probably get my reservation fixed a little bit and then go with a Tempest Shield and a lightning effect for elemental resistances or elemental ailments. So we can definitely use that tech later. I'm just leveling it here currently. We're using for auras, determination, skitterbots, precision, and then I think we're obviously using malevolence and envy. That's going to be 5, and that's my full reservation. For the overall build, I think it's pretty much in the right place. It just hasn't been fully scaled. I probably wouldn't change anything on this. You may change your amulet if you have a good amulet. You may do a hungry leap here if you could take the reservation hits the resistance hits. So again, just think about this as a work in progress. The POB is going to be more definitive because I'll do all the numbers there. Let's talk about the skill tree. So to start with, this is very reminiscent of an SRS build, and again, will be in the POB, pretty fleshed out. The main change here is that to get the clusters, I took out my pathing from sacrifice and discipline and training and just went up this vertical. So the early variants where you're just trying to get maybe 60 or 70 points in, you're not going to be doing these clusters. You're not going to worry about this. You're not going to do this pathing right here. You're just going to go up this because you're going to get more value out of sacrifice and discipline and training than you are going to get out of these large loops of faith, or threads of hope, sorry. So the main tech here is we're saving about 20 points, getting Ravenous Horde, Indomitable Army, and Decay Ward. These 3 points give a lot of damage and a lot of defenses, and for the golems that are elemental immune, you're getting, because golems get elemental immunity if you're an elementalist, the damage there is substantial. You're getting a lot of damage for onslaught, but you're also getting a lot of survivability from Decay Ward. The blocking, recovering 2% of their life is pretty substantial, and then also getting the Indomitable Army, which reduces the physical damage taken. It's really good. At one point in time, I was spec'd into Grave Intentions, and that was actually pretty strong. I probably will go back to this. I don't know how I'm going to get this, probably maybe through an anoint. The overall goal here is to get the golems to be almost immortal, so I can just walk away from the fight, let them deal with all the really juiced mobs, and I don't have to really worry about whether or not my minions are dying and not applying damage. And it's more of a steamroller build than it is a damage, nuke. I think a lot of bow builds out there I consider like a board clearing and a nuke. I probably consider most of my builds for minions more of a steamroller, where you're always going to pass over the mobs. You're always going to progress. You just may not do it as quickly as others, but you'll never be stopped. You'll never be dead in the water. So let's just go through the actual skill tree and just explain this a little bit. Ravenous Horde, you can definitely get onslaught from some of the new specters. I feel like that's not as good as it could be because the specters could die, and I would just like to have this buff always up. We get Golem Commander, obviously, and Convocation here, so it's easier to convocate my minions. This also means that they heal more. So every time you convocate, you're getting 1.65% of life back, and 40% faster means, more healing. Indomitable Army is used for the physical damage reduction mostly, mainly. Bleeding's great, elemental resistance are great, but the big thing here is the physical damage reduction, because the only thing golems are going to die from is physical damage or from chaos. I'm getting Hardened Soul and Practical Application just for some stats and some life. We're going down here for Decay because this is obviously giving us a lot of life regen. Dreamer is just a secondary benefit. It's just good to have some mana efficiency. Again, Insightfulness is just some energy shield. It's nice. It's just a secondary benefit. I would never path to it, but because I have the Thread of Hope here, I will use it. I may also go over to Last Rites for the regen reduction, but I'm not exactly sure if I will do that. The wheel up here I'm using just for a little bit of extra minion damage, 2 jewels instead of 1, and some reservation efficiency. Over here I can get these cluster jewels to a specific spell and actually a skill gem, and get the reservation better. I'm just throwing these in here just to make it work currently. I'm going down to Spiritual Command because that would help with any attacks I'm doing, which would be Shield Charge. Right now I'm not using Shield Charge, but I'm going to keep that in because it will be using Shield Charge, and this gives additional damage to the minions. Normal reservation wheel. This minion wheel here, we're doing physical damage reduction, overwhelm. So this is not really needed. I'm just running it because I feel like it's useful. I probably should switch this out to Unholy Might because I'm more a Chaos variant now. Normal Shield Mastery here, just 1 chance to block per 5. We're doing the Sanctum of Thought because I like the crit reduction. The only 2 ways this build really dies is either through big crits or degens. So we have the Stone Golem to deal with the degen, and we have the Sanctum of Thought to help reduce crit. I probably will go up here to this Curse Mastery later on and take the 40% reduced extra damage from critical strikes from cursed enemies to get this down to 70% reduced extra damage. I'm using 5% recovery energy shields per physical damage. This is pretty easy tech to take. It goes along with Aegis Aura pretty nicely. And here I'm using 100% increased armor and energy shield for body armor. This is obviously just to buff Aegis more because you get, again, more armor, which means more ES recovery. Here I'm running Determination and Malevolence Reservation Auras. I'd probably turn this into an 8 instead of a 9, which it's at, so I can get 1 skill point back, but right now that's not very important. And these Reservation Auras will probably eventually become 3 skill points as opposed to 2. Again, this is just because I'm not exactly sure where I want all my points to be. That's pretty straightforward on this build. Again, if you're doing the early variants of this for a physical version, which I think you should be doing before you convert, you should be doing 2 clay shapers, and that's just to get through the axe and maybe a little bit of mapping to get some currency to buy your primary weapon, which is United in Dream. But once you get done with that, you can unspec this section here and start moving towards the cluster jewels. You don't have to have cluster jewels. I'm just mainly doing that because my reservation is rough and I'd like it to be better. So leveling wise, I think most people should have leveled characters now, so I'm not doing a leveling guide for this, but if you want, there's tons of SRS builds out there, and I probably just level this as an SRS build. So that's the skill tree. The build itself probably could be used in a Stone Golem as well, and if you want to do like a Stone Golem poison version, I don't think it's going to work as well because you're not hitting as many times, but you probably could do something similar. Let's talk about the content, the cost, and the damage this build does. So the content it can do is pretty much anything. If you want to do reflect maps, you can do reflect maps. You're not doing elemental damage, so you don't need to worry about that. If you're doing physical reflect maps, I'd suggest unsummoning your specters, leaving them in your hideout, and unsummoning your AG and just using golems. But you can definitely do it. They'll just run headlong into it and they'll just continuously resummon, so it'll take longer to do it, but you can do it. No regen maps are a little bit harder, but you can do it as well if you have mana flasks and some guaranteed mana or some flash charge regen. This will allow you to convocate or blink as needed or shield charge as needed, so you can definitely do it. I would just say that you need to know what kind of maps you're running and just make sure you don't just assume that you can run anything all the time, because this is not arakaalis fang where you can just run anything all the time. You can run most things all the time. Alright, so cost-wise and damage-wise for an entry build, you're looking at about 2 divine to get this running, and you're probably going to get around 1 million to 2 million DPS, depending on how much you actually have clusters on hand or whatever, what kind of efficiencies you have with jewels, what kind of qualities you have with jewels. Again, this is one of those things like what you currently have on hand may affect that, but it's normally 1 to 2 million DPS and 1 to 2 divine to start. Later variants can get to 20 to 30 million DPS, and that is all dependent on what kind of stuff you find. And you can buy, I would say you're probably looking at 40 divine for 10 million DPS. The ratio isn't great, but again, this is golems, so you're probably going to get more quality of life out of that investment than you expect, as opposed to something like arakaalis fang, where you could put 40 divine into it and get 30 million DPS or 40 million DPS, but you're not going to get the type of quality of life you're going to get out of golems. So it's a mix match, pick and choose what you like. So poison golems are definitely viable in this current league, and the damage to cost ratio isn't astronomically bad where it was in the past. So it is viable.